Namaste, welcome back to our English class. Today we are going to discuss the second part of the story, the ashes that made trees bloom. Before that, just revise what we discussed in the first part. That's the first part of the story. Next, let's look what happened in the second part. I'll read and give you line by line explanation. You people just go through the lines and try to understand what happened. Not long after that, the good old man dreamed again, and the spirit of the dog spoke to him, telling him how the wicked people had burned the mill made from the pine tree. Yes, our lovely Muko again came into his mind, came into his dream, and said how that wicked couple burned that mortar and mill. And he also suggested that Muko also suggested, take the ashes of the mill, sprinkle them on the withered trees, and they will bloom again, said the dog spirit. Yes, and he said that you want to collect that ashes of that mortar and mill from that wicked couple or from that jealous person, and you should sprinkle that ashes on the withered tree. Withered means dry trees. On that time, they will bloom again. Yes, that withered tree would bloom again. You can see that and do like that. That Muko suggested. And the old man awoke and went at once to his wicked neighbour's house, where he found the miserable old pair sitting at the edge of their square fireplace. Yes, and the very next day, the old man, that our farmer, he visited that neighbour's house, that jealous couple's house. On that end, they were sitting in the square fireplace in the middle of the floor, then smoking and spinning. Then from time to time they warm their hands, and time to time they warm their hands, then and feet with blaze from some bits of the mill, while behind them lay a pile of the broken pieces. The good old man humbly asked for the ashes. Yes, our old man, he humbly asked the ashes of that mortar. Though the covetous couple turned up their noses at him and scolded him as if he were a thief, they let him fill his basket with the ashes. Initially that covetous, that greedy couple, he scolded our farmer. Then they allowed him to collect the ashes. So after getting permission, our farmer, he collected a basket full of ashes from that house. Then, on coming home, the old man took his wife into the garden. It being winter, their favorite cherry tree was bare. So their favorite cherry tree was withered. So he sprinkled a pinch of ashes on it. Then he tried. So he sprinkled a pinch of ashes into that cherry tree. Then, and lo, it sprouted blossoms until it became a cloud of pink blooms which perfumed the air. Suddenly, that withered, that dry tree became blue or sprouted blossoms until it became a cloud of pink blooms which perfumed the air, and they became wonder. Okay, suddenly within few minutes that withered tree turns blue. Then The news of this filled the village and everyone ran out to see the wonder. Yes, and that village heard that news and they became wonder and they ran towards the cherry tree to see that magic. Then the covetous couple also heard the story and gathering up the remaining ashes of the mill kept them to make withered trees blossom. Yes, and our covetous couple, that greedy couple also heard that news and they realized, oh, these ashes again made a magic. So they collected the remaining ashes from that place and they also tried to sprinkle that ashes into the dried trees. The kind old man, hearing that his lord, the daimyo, was to pass along the high road near the village, set out to see him taking his basket of ashes. On that time, he heard that a daimyo, the landlord, was planning to pass through that. He heard that news. That daimyo, the landlord, was passing through that village. So he collected that ashes, set out to see him. He decided to see him taking his basket of ashes, and so he also took that basket full of ashes. As the train approached, he climbed up into an old withered cherry tree that stood by the wayside. Okay, so he heard the news that landlord was passing through that place, so he wanted to see him and he wanted to present something special to that landlord. So he went to that place because there was a cherry tree, a withered cherry tree, and he climbed that cherry tree with that basket. Then, now in the days of the daimyos, it was the custom when the landlord passed by for all the loyal people to shut up their high windows. They even passed them fast with a slip of paper so as not to commit the impertinence of looking down on his lordship. All the people along the road would fall upon their hands and knees and remain prostrate until the procession passed by. Yes, I told you it was happened in Japan. It's a Japanese tale. So in Japan there was a custom. So when the landlord was passing through a place, so the ordinary people want to lie on their knees and they want to show their respect. So there was a custom in that place. So, but our old man, our old farmer, instead of lying on his knee, he climbed on that cherry tree. Then the train drew near. Train means that procession. Train mentioned here is not the actual train. So it's procession. The train drew near. One tall, competent man marched ahead, crying out to the people by the way, "Get down on your knees, get down on your knees." Yes, on that time a tall man, he walked in front of that procession and he ordered to the loyal people, to the ordinary people, "Get down your knees, get down on your knees." He said like this, and everyone kneeled down while the procession was passing through. Suddenly, the leader of the van caught sight of the aged man up in the... At that time, the leader of the van caught sight, and the leader of that procession noticed that an old man was sitting up in the tree. Then, he was about to call out to him in an angry tone, but seeing he was such an old fellow, he pretended not to notice him and passed him by. Yes, and he noticed that at first he felt angry, then he noticed that he was such an old fellow, he was such an old man, so he didn't tell anything more. Then he pretended not to notice him and passed him by. So when the daimyo's palanquin drew near, the old man, taking a pinch of ashes from his basket, scattered it over the tree. In a moment it burst into blossom. Yes. So they continued that procession. When that daimyo, that landlord, passed through that tree, our old man, our old farmer took a pinch of ashes and scattered on that withered cherry tree. Suddenly, within few seconds, that cherry tree became blossom or burst into blossom. And and the delighted daimyo ordered the train to be stopped and got out to see the wonder. And actually that landlord became wonder. Okay, after seeing that, suddenly a withered cherry tree became blossom. When that landlord passed through that place, a withered cherry tree became blossom. He wondered, that landlord became wonder. And he ordered to stop that procession, and he came out and he said, he stopped and got out to see the wonder, calling the old man to him. He thanked him and ordered presents of silk, robes, sponge cake, fans and other rewards to be given him. He even invited him to his castle. Yes, and he became so happy. That daimyos, that landlord became so happy. So he ordered to give a lot of gifts to our old man, our old farmer. So what kind of gifts? Calling the old man to him, he thanked him and ordered presents of silk robes, then sponge cake, fans and other rewards to be given him. He even invited him to his castle. Yes, as a special invite, as a special gift, the landlord invited our old man, our old farmer, that kind-hearted person into his castle. So the old man went gleefully home to share his joy with his dear old wife, and he became very happy. He became very happy. Why? Because the landlord presented a lot of gifts. Not only presented a lot of gifts, but also he invited him into his castle. But when the greedy neighbor heard of it, he took some of the magic ashes and went out on the highway. Yes, our jealous couple, that jealous man also heard this news. Okay, so he also collected some ashes and went to a highway. There he waited until a daimyo's train came along, and instead of kneeling down like a crowd, he climbed the withered cherry tree. Yes. So he also imitated our old farmer. The jealous man tried to climb, or he climbed on that cherry tree, on that withered tree, and waiting for the daimyos, waiting for the landlord. So he waited there. He climbed a withered cherry tree. When the daimyo himself was almost directly under him, he threw a handful of ashes over the tree. Yes, when that landlord passed through that cherry tree, he threw a handful of ashes directly under him. He threw a handful of ashes over the tree, which did not change a particle. The wind blew the fine dust in the noses and the eyes of the daimyo and his wife. But unfortunately, that tree, that cherry tree, that withered cherry tree didn't burst into blossom. Suddenly the wind blew the fine dust in the noses and eyes of the daimyo and his wife. That ashes fell into the eyes and noses of that landlord. Such sneezing and choking, it spoiled all the pomp and dignity of the procession. Yes, so it destroyed the dignity of that procession. And it completely destroyed the dignity of that procession. And the man whose business it was to cry, "Get down on your knees," seized the old fool by the collar, dragged him from the tree, and tumbled him and his ash basket into the ditch by the road. Then, beating him soundly, he left him for dead. Yes, and one of his soldiers, he dragged him from that tree, and he beated him into death. He beated that person, that jealous man, into death. Thus the wicked old man died in the mud, but the kind friend of the dog dwelt in peace and plenty, and both he and his wife lived to a green old age. Thus our old jealous man, a farmer, died, and our hero, that farmer, lived along with his wife, happily lived along with his wife for the remaining years, for a long years. So that's the very interesting story, a Japanese tale written by William Elliot Griffis. I hope you all understood this story. very well. So thank you guys. See you in the next class.